So as you guys have probably figured from the title, this video is not necessarily a review, but it's more of a retrospective. I will be looking back at Pokémon Generation One. It's the generation that got me into Pokémon, really. I've followed Pokémon on and off since my childhood. It's the game that's sort of ingrained in my collective subconscious. I can draw a Pikachu from memory. I've watched many of the Kanto episodes, pretty much all of them, including the Orange Island series and beyond. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this retrospective. So as you can see, Pokémon Generation 1, referred to affectionately as Red, Blue and Yellow, came out around the early 2000s, but the original inception for Pokémon was the late 90s. Obviously heralded by Nintendo and brought to us by Game Freak, it's a series that has left me with so many joyous moments. I wanted to catch them all, literally. It was like cocaine for kids. When I first started doing YouTube videos, I did Pokemon videos. I would buy booster boxes and I would do unboxings of them. I would buy special sets, I would buy EXs. I was still sort of cultivated in that mindset. Sierra, as the game starts off, you're in Pallet Town playing as the character known as Red, although you can name your character pretty much anything you want. It's essentially Ash, but in reference only. The idea is you start from Pallet Town, your hometown, you pick your starter Pokemon, either Bulbasaur, Charmander or Squirtle, or if you're playing Yellow, you'll be given a Pikachu. Then we meet this guy, Gary, your rival. Although he's referred to as Blue in the anime, or pretty much again anything, most of us will have called him something stupid in the name option. He is your rival for this game, he is essentially your benchmark. So the narrative plays out pretty simply. You train your Pokemon, you catch Pokemon, you challenge trainers, you complete in-game missions if there are any, take on gym leaders, collect all 8 gym badges, face the Elite Four, beat the Elite Four, become the champion. The games play out pretty much the same between Blue and Red. However, with Yellow, the only major difference is your starter Pokemon is Pikachu, and you have the options in different points in the game to get the other 3 starters and have them on your team if you so wish. Going back through the game's coding, you can find the missing no cheat, which is always awesome to go back to. Like, I love those types of old hacks and those types of in-game things that people discover years later in ways in which you can glitch the game. For the most part, the game doesn't follow too much of a set narrative outside of the story. You can catch Pokemon that you find, you can raise them, level them up, battle them, trade them to evolve exclusive Pokemon such as Graveler into Golem, you will need to trade over, Machoke to Machamp you will need to trade over, and Haunts to Gengar you will need to trade over. So as you can see, you're not exactly shy of types. Outside of some of the newer types that have come along in several generations, like in Gen 2 was introduced Steel and Dark, and say for example in Generation 6 we had Fairy. Something I did want to mention is Legendaries. They're really cool. Still some of my favourite and iconic Pokemon of all time. You've got the 3 legendary birds, you've got Articuno, Zapdos and Moltres, and of course your main legendary, which I'm sure you guys know the narrative of, Mewtwo. Team Rocket, I almost forgot to mention them, I genuinely forgot for a second. Okay, so one main enemy outside of your rival is Giovanni. He is the head of Team Rocket. You guys should know Team Rocket by now, but if you don't, they are the evil organization that are behind capturing Pokemon, headed up by 2 characters known as Jesse and James. These are not featured in Blue and Red, however they do make appearances in Yellow. The great thing about Pokemon is that it follows the mechanics of a traditional RPG. You catch Pokemon, you level them up, you train them essentially, and you can teach them better moves, either through TMs, which are technical machines, or HMs, which are hidden machines. HMs, just be aware, are non-tradable commodities, so if you teach your Pokemon a hidden move, like a Strength, or a Surf, or a Fly for example, you cannot trade that Pokemon over to another game, unless you remove the hidden machine first. Okay, so something I did want to talk about with the Elite Four, going a little more in depth in that. We have the 4 trainers, which make up the composite members of the Elite Four, plus the champion, which technically makes the Elite 5, but that would be splitting hairs. Okay, so first up you will be facing Lorelei. She mainly uses Ice-type Pokemon. Water and Ice types a combination with a few Psychic-type moves thrown in for good measure. Next up we have Bruno, who's technically a mountain trainer you could argue, because he mostly uses fighting types, but he does have an Onix on his team, so I count that. Third of all, we have the jilted lover of Professor Oak. May or may not be true, I'm not sure. This is Agatha. She uses mainly, technically poison-type Pokemon because there are very few ghost-type Pokemon in the game. And the final member of the Elite Four is Lance, the dragon trainer. If you can get past Lance, then you think, yes, I've beaten the Elite Four, I have won the game. As I mentioned, Blue is your final challenger. Gary, Blue, your rival, whatever you wish to call him. And he is the penultimate test, he is the apex of this game. If you can beat him, you've essentially beaten the game. So as I said, I always had a good time with Pokémon Generation 1. The story is quite linear for the most part, as I've mentioned, but the parts that I have brought up always just bring back, the fond memories just come flooding back. hanging around in the Safari Zone trying to catch Chansey, or leveling up my starter Pokemon to its final stage, or preparing for the Elite Four, or just generally just going through the game as it is. Obviously, to many people, Generation 1 was the blueprint, the standard for Pokemon games, and then when Generation 2 came out a year or so later with the Johto games, which is Silver and Gold, I don't blame people for thinking that they did a better job, but for nostalgia for me personally, I will always hold a place in my heart for Generation 1. But as you can see, a fun time all round that old and new fans can get into. I love the series. I'm still sort of invested in the series even to this day, although I don't keep up with it as much. I'm still sort of on the pulse with some things. So it's hit and miss on certain things, but Generation 1 I know a lot about. I've played the hell out of those games. I have beaten those games more than I could count, and I always had a good time going back to them. And it's just one of the reasons why Nintendo still goes strong to this day, because they can always hang their hat off of those original games. So yeah guys, that's sort of my retrospective review, if you will, on Pokemon Generation 1. I've done it in this shorter format. I hope you guys have been enjoying these newer sort of formats. It's easier for me to condense and edit, I think. I prefer doing them that way anyway. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. I've been Heracross Plays, and I'll see you next time.